All right, now saying in Fulton County, you'd be forgiven if you thought the election interference case was over, done, we can move on, stop talking about it. Not quite. The repercussions could have the taxpayer footing a massive bill. Grace King reported on this story yesterday. She's joining us now. First time in studio. Grace, great to have you with us this morning.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right. We're talking potentially $16 million in legal fees here. Walk us through, if you've been sleeping under a rock for the last few days, what's happened?
Well, so we have the Georgia election interference case. That, of course, the indictment came down back in August 2023. The case had a lot of hiccups along the way, and eventually all charges were dismissed. So last spring, when the legislature was in session, lawmakers passed a new law looking at cases like this one, where it has to meet these specific standards, right? So the prosecutor has to be disqualified, and you have to have the charges dismissed against the defendant. So you don't see that happen a lot, but that did happen in this case specifically. And now that that's happened, you have 45 days if you want to try and recoup your legal fees spent on this case. That's the new state law. We've never really seen it play out in court. This is the first time we're seeing it. But all of these attorneys said, hey, this law exists. We want to try, see where this goes. Let's take it. So they had 45 days. This was filed, I believe, the day before Thanksgiving. The charges were dismissed. So they had until yesterday to file. And 13 of the 15 eligible all filed saying, here's our legal bills. We would like the Fulton County DA's office to pay them.
So for whatever reason, 2 defendants have not come forward.
Yeah, one of them, I'm not quite sure why she didn't file. The other one just told me they weren't going to file it this time. That was Ashley Merchant. She was the one who revealed the relationship between District Attorney Fonnie Willis and Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade that kind of derailed the whole case, if you will. She said they weren't going to file, so they didn't. The other defendant is Misty Hampton. We're not quite sure why she didn't file, but again, everyone else in this case did go ahead and ask.
So where exactly in the budget is all this money going to come from? I mean, is it straight out of the DA's pockets, or is it coming more from taxpayers' general fund type stuff?
Well, so that's the way the law's written, is that it would come from the DA's operating budget. But the way the DA's operating budget is funded is through Fulton County's operating budget. The DA, Fulton County this year, they're going to give her $40.6 million for her office. The chairman told me that's almost all personnel. So if you think of all the staff it takes to run the DA's office, to move not just these criminal cases, but the smaller criminal cases, all the cases through the legal system, that's her personnel. Fulton County has a huge case backlog. We've talked about it for years. They've struggled to kind of keep up after COVID. So cutting any portion of that budget really isn't an option. So the Fulton County chairman told me she won't be able to pay it because her budget's so limited, so the county will have to pay it out of its general funds. Whether they have enough money depends on how much this final amount ends up being.
Is she going to have the opportunity, DA Willis, to argue this before a judge? And is the judge even going to care at that point? Or is he going to say this is up to the county to figure out where the funds come from? I mean, what are the next steps in this case?
So the judge has no say in where the funds come from. If he says this is the bill, the county has to figure out how to pay for it. That'll be maybe a commission discussion. They'll talk to the DA, look at things. They said they might look at budget cuts if they have to. They don't want to. Look at the millage rate, just figure out where that money would have to come from. The DA's office has filed a motion to intervene in this case, saying they would like their day in court. They believe this new law is unconstitutional. It hasn't been really challenged by anyone. We haven't seen it play out yet. They want a day in court to say, here's why we haven't argued this. So there were multiple motions throughout the duration of this case saying these charges are meritless. They shouldn't move forward in court. And Judge McAfee, he did dismiss some counts here and there, but overall he kept the case moving forward. So he was saying there is grounds to continue the case. There is grounds to continue the case. So she's saying because that was denied multiple times, there's proof in court from that same judge that this case did have merit to it. There were just other reasons they chose not to prosecute it in the end. So she's hoping she can make that argument to the judge in court. She asked for a hearing on March 25th, but again, it's all in Judge McAfee's hands.
Yeah, so he's going to be the one who decides what's reasonable in this case, which is kind of left open to interpretation. And do we know how much President Trump has asked for?
Yes. So President Trump, his attorneys have asked for $6.3 million. So there's some other defendants, though. They're also asking upwards in the millions. You have Mark Meadows, his former chief of staff, at $2.2 million. You have Sean Still at $1.8, David Schaefer, $1.4 million, Robert Cheatley, $1.3 million. So, I mean, when you start asking 15 defendants how much their legal bills cost, it adds up very, very quickly. But that reasonable is going to be the key word there.
Is this going to set up precedent for other dismissed cases in Georgia, or do you think this is unique because of what happened with the prosecutor being dismissed and because of that new law?
So the way the law is written is there has to be some kind of issue with the prosecutor on the case. You don't often see that in criminal cases. Of course, there are situations. A lot of times, a lot of the reasons this case ended up being dismissed was just the sheer volume of it. The reason it couldn't actually be tried, you had the head of the prosecuting attorneys qualifications commission, Pete Scandalakis. He was saying, listen, you can't try a sitting president. By the time he's out of office, we're talking 10 years removed from all these charges happening. There were a lot of special reasons why this case didn't move forward. In other cases where we've seen the prosecutor disqualified, if it's just one or two defendants, it's easier for another office to pick up versus 15 defendants. How do you try them? The timeline. I mean, this was just, he was saying it's too difficult to pick up at this point, this far removed. So
Grace,
I'm not sure if it'll be a precedent, but.
Yeah, right. Final question for you. Have we heard from any county officials? Has Chairman Pitts, for example, weighed in to talk about where this money's going to come from?
He says it'll come from the county's general fund. He
Yeah.
just doesn't know, again, that reasonable number. Judge Scott McAfee could say, yep, 15.78 million. That's how much it costs. That's
Right.
how much you have to pay. He could say, well, some of these attorneys are billing 1,000 an hour. We'll give you 200 an hour. You billed 300 hours. We think it should have taken 200. That'll be his discretion. We don't know when he has to make that decision by, but how they'll pay depends on how much that bill is.
We've never seen anything like it. It's
No.
going to be fascinating to watch.
Unprecedented is
Yeah.
the word of this case.
The fallout continues. Grace, thank you so much.